All right, it is 2 minutes past. So, welcome everyone to the first study group that we've actually set up for STE skills. So, the goal for the study group essentially is to match people who are mentors who are actually proficient in data structures and match them with people who are actually looking to learn data structures. So, let's spend the next like 15-20 minutes. Let me just go over the logistics, and then I can take questions in case people have any specific ones. So at this point, we have 8 groups. We have one group which is actually looking to meet during the weekend in the evening around the Bellevue, Redmond, or Kirkland area. Gaurav and Madhu have agreed to be leads for that. We've got 2 groups that are actually meeting on weekday in the evening, and then we've got 3 groups that are meeting in the weekends in the evening, and we've got 2 groups that are meeting in the weekend in the mornings. As of now, all of you should be in your respective groups. There is a study group Slack channel that actually has each of the leads for sure. I have added folks as well to the study group, so go take a look at your study group Slack channel. The invitation to this particular hangout was also posted in your respective study group, so you should be able to see that. If you have any questions and concerns around what your timings are, what batch you are in, just like ping me on Slack, and I can try to figure out what's going on. As mentees, the expectation for you is like so, and this is something that you should be doing in the next few days. One is work with your group and identify the best time that works for all of you to meet. For the in-person group, you also have the additional logistics of figuring out which like library or conference room or something you're meeting. For the rest of the group, I strongly recommend Hangouts. The Google Hangouts actually works pretty well. But if you think you have a different way that makes sense, like if you have Skype or something else, feel free to set it up. As long as the whole group agrees on something, that's fine. In case there are questions or disagreements around that, I'm just looking at the leads to take a call and just move on. In order to make the most of the session, I'm looking at each of the mentees to spend no less than an hour every day to review the topics and prepare for the questions. The questions themselves are there's only a dozen questions in total, and you'll be expected to work on 4 questions each week, and we do it for 3 weeks, and then there is a test on the fourth week. So it's not really a whole lot of questions for you to practice on, but the thing to note is that you need to, I think practice is important, and make sure that you're actually preparing for the topics, because some of these concepts may be new to you. So please make sure that you spend the time to read and prepare on these topics. If you have any questions, feel free to ping on Slack, and one of us will definitely help you with what material to read and what topics to actually look at, or what YouTube videos you can watch to become better in those topics. Each week, the expectation would be that you would solve the questions that is provided to you, and please do not use a computer to solve the questions. A typical interview is actually a whiteboard based interview, so the best thing that you can do is to simulate that environment. If you can't write on a whiteboard, I mean, writing the answers on a piece of paper actually works better. uh, just take pictures and scan the solutions so that you can share them with your mentors. I'll just provide some details around how to do that just a little bit. And as a mentor, the 12 questions that we will be using for this particular batch has been already shared to you. So shared with you, and you should be able to look at all the questions. Please practice them yourself so that you know what kind of answers to expect and what makes sense. Now, in the next couple of days, I'm looking forward to you facilitating the conversation to set up the group meet. So it's for the next 3 weeks, you'll be meeting for 1 hour each, and the mentees will provide the solution, upload the solution essentially about 2 days before the meeting. So please take some time to review the solutions. There will be 2 mentors for each group, so you can choose to divide and conquer in terms of what works for you. What we believe is the best way to run this thing is that you divide the questions, and then you review all the solutions for the same question. That makes more sense. That way, each meeting you're only leading 2 questions, and the other mentor can lead the other 2 questions. and you're essentially speaking for half the time, and the other mentor is speaking for the other half. At the meeting, discuss the solutions, and just as you have reviewed the solutions from the mentees, just walk through some of the key features that you thought were good or bad in each of the solutions, and that will essentially provide like the code review support that the mentees need. Please keep time, because you have about 10 to 15 minutes per question, leaving a little bit over for spillovers. I'd really like to make sure that you are ending your meetings in 1 hour and not take too much time. These things are quite they have a way of extending themselves. So I'm just hoping that you're not spending an hour or like an hour and a half or two for each of the meeting. Encourage your mentees to ask questions in the Slack and try to respond them as quickly as you can. I am also on all the group Slack channels, so I will be able to provide any feedback or answer questions if required. But in general, let's actually use offline mechanisms a lot more. And I also encourage the mentees to help each other. This is a study group, and not really a classroom session per se. So the goal of the mentors is to actually provide a forum where all the mentees can get together, and it's just a question of walking through the solutions and walking through the key aspects of the solution. So it's not really a classroom session of where you're actually giving the answer to the students. All right. So here is this is the best practice. Here are some of the best practices that I think will help mentees accomplish more. So what I would recommend is the following. One is essentially grab a fresh notebook for this session, for the entire study group, and possibly use it for beyond that as well. And what I feel would actually make it more effective is, from the front of the notebook, actually for every question you attempt, write down the question and then the solution. Also make a note of when you started answering it and when did you finish. In general, most questions you should be able to finish writing complete code in less than 30 minutes. That's the goal. If you're taking longer, that is fine for now, but you'd want to see you progress and improve over time. And one of the tools that I strongly recommend is that once you have solved a question, once you've actually spent the time, reflect on that question to actually see what took time. And if you have the ability to like go back in time and give yourself like a hint that will help you solve faster, like what would that be? And then flip the notebook over from the reverse side of the notebook, just start writing down these hints. And a common example of the hint would be, have you tried different data structures, or something like, write down the edge cases first, or you have not tested your code, or things like that. So what that will do is, before your interview or before your next batch of what you want to do, just keep reviewing the hints. And the reviewing these hints will actually, and these hints are very specific to you and very personal to you. These are the things that you can tell yourself that will actually make you do things faster. And if you can have a list that you can permanently commit to memory, then that will make you more effective. Now, in order for us to also help this group work well, I'm also looking at you creating a folder in your Google Drive. Preferably Google Drive. Dropbox is okay, but I think if most of you seem to have a Gmail account, if not, just create one. It's just easier for the leads to have it all in one place, and then share it with the leads. Just make sure that you're posting your solutions like 2 days before the meeting, so that your mentors have adequate time the to review the solutions and make notes. For all of you, specifically the mentees, one of the things that I'm looking forward to is, number one is make sure that you are in the Slack group. You have a Slack ID and you're already a part of the SG group N. If you're not, ping me. I will make sure that you're there. There are only 2 people, I believe, who are not in the group yet, and I can I've called them out later. And if I don't hear back from them, I will probably move them out and get somebody else. Create a shared folder in Google Drive. Just name it something like pilot batch, whatever your group is, pilot batch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8, and your name. And then you can share it with your leads. I encourage the leads to share the email address that they want to be added in the Slack channel. Also add Vivek at SDA Skills, so that way I can keep track of all of the solutions that are being posted. When you take pictures, just from your phone would do. Just make sure it's legible. Just name the files as like question X, page Y, and then like hints, page 1, page 2, page 3, just to see what you've done. Your group should have already picked the 3 calendar time slots for all of you to meet. By 7/6, I'm expecting them to all the 3 meetings to be set up. If you do not complete these steps as a student, as a mentor, as a mentee, I will replace you and add somebody else from the wait list into the study group. In order for the study group to be effective, I expect and encourage participation from all of you. This is not this is a participating session, and this is not something where you can just watch from the sidelines. If you're busy and you cannot solve these questions in the next 3 or 4 weeks, then it might make sense for you to vacate the spot and then probably give this spot to somebody else who's actually eager and willing to contribute. We are looking for a lot of feedback from this group, from this session, so that we can fix and fine tune this. So totally appreciate all the support from you. So here's what the schedule looks like at a very high level for the next 3-4 weeks. So July 2nd, which is today, we have this session where we are talking about what are the different, how would we proceed. The week of July 9th, so between July 9th and the July 15th, I'm expecting the first 4 questions to be discussed. I will share the first 4 questions in the next 3 days. And then July 16th to 22nd, which is a subsequent week, we are looking to discuss 5 to 8 questions, 5 to 8. And then the next week, which is July 23rd to 29th, we're expecting to discuss questions 9 through 12. In the morning of July 30, we will share the final test. Thanks for the question, Arvi. I have not shared the questions yet. As a lead, all the 12 questions have been shared with the leads. The questions that will be used in weeks. As students, I am planning to share the questions on a rolling basis, and I'll just tell you when you'll actually get those questions. Give us a minute. So the final test happens on essentially the question for the final test will be shared on 30th of July in the morning, and you have essentially 2 days to take the test. It's self-timed, self-administered. There is no proctoring or anything. Share your solutions with the leads by end of day July 31st, so that they can review and provide feedback. We will have on August 3rd. I'm looking forward to getting back to everyone with the test results. I'm also looking to set up some time for feedback for the organizers, the mentors, the mentees, and the likes. And then we will see how this goes. That's pretty much what the schedule looks like. Yes, Ben, there's a Word document that was shared, or Google Drive doc that was shared with the leads. I will specifically send it to you again, just so that you can see it. All right, so just a little bit more about the test. We will share the test with the group on July 30th, 10 a.m. PST. Those are the 2 questions that we'll have. It's unsupervised, no time limit. The general recommendation is essentially 1 hour, and it'll cover the topics that are discussed during the study group. And please upload your answers to the Google Drive folder before end of day on July 31st, so that the leads have like August 1st and August 2nd and a good part of August 3rd to correct and evaluate your test sheets. Callouts: the 2 people who are not in Slack at this point of time and potentially might end up losing their spot is there is a Gaurav with a long Gaurav and some number at gmail.com, and then there is Vijay R with ID beginning with love C something something at gmail.com. I've sent you an email specifically telling you that if you do not respond, you will lose your spot. I have not heard back from them. So if it is you, then please let me know. Okay. Let me know as soon as possible, because I've not been able to tag your Slack ID at this point of time. Okay. All right. So any questions at this point of time, either on chat or on Slack, or unmute yourself and then go ahead with any questions you have.
Good morning, Vivek. This is Sandeep speaking.
Hey, Sandeep.
I think I missed out one part of your this seminar, this presentation. So every session will be for about 2 hours, where 1 hour will be taken by lead one, the other hour will be taken by lead two. Is that what you're planning it, or so? I just want to ask about that.
Oh, fantastic point. So we are looking to it's a 1 hour in total, and
Okay.
we've got two leads, so it will be 30 minutes per lead, and
Okay.
looking at 15 minutes per question. So we'll be discussing 4 questions. The general
Okay.
recommendation is that the leads actually divide and conquer the question on a session by session basis, but you with your peer lead may choose to divide it. As you may take session 1 entirely with all the 4 questions, and the other lead may take session 2 with the entire 4 questions, and you may split the session 3. I mean, it's up to you. Between you and your lead, the other lead, you can choose which way you want.
But what if, because in every study group batch, on an average, there are 5 students, right? So if
6 students.
Yeah, 6 students. So if every student has a question, then I think it's going to be difficult for the lead to allocate in the 30 minutes, right? So, so can we extend the session in that point of time to more than an hour, or like you still want us to restrict within 30 minutes?
Fantastic question. I'm very sensitive of the time that the leads are spending. What I'm recommending is the goal for these study group review session, the 1 hour, is actually to review the solutions and to present what are the key points. So it's for the leads to present, hey, here's how, like, look, here's a solution, here's a different way of doing it, and so on, and time box it to 15 minutes. If people have questions, I mean, they will have questions. Trying to see how you can facilitate that conversation and keep it to the 1 hour. That's the recommendation. But again, if the leads want to extend themselves and spend a little bit more time with the mentees, that's perfectly fine. In general, I expect that conversation to also happen in the Slack outside this 1 hour session. 1 hour is not the only time when we do that.
Sure. And so the timing for our session, that is group 5, I post it, or will it be like a unanimously people will decide, like we'll go for, or you will decide the session timing? So how is it going to go for them?
Thanks for that question. So the session times are self-organized. So I'm expecting the groups to agree to a session schedule by 7/6 and set up those meetings as well. The only thing is here is that there is essentially, while I expect consensus from the parties, I have paired people up based on what they have claimed as weekend mornings and weekday evenings and things like that. So I'm hoping that you should not have too much trouble in coming up to consensus. In case of an issue, I think I'm going to give leads the priority. So between the two leads, if you can agree a specific time slot, and that's the time slot I'm expecting the mentees to follow.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much, Vivek.
Group 8 leads are Harsha and Atik. If you look at the Slack channel, you will find both of them. All right, any other questions? Okay, Yogi, please ping me on Slack. If you're not on Slack already, please log into Slack and please join Slack. I should have probably mentioned that. So to get to Slack, it is the www.steskills.com/invite, and that will give you an invitation to join. I will add whoever is missing. I will make sure that I've made a note of it. Yogi, I will figure it out. Which group you need to be in. Yeah, I will share the PDF of this presentation. It is uploaded in the there's these skills Google Drive. I'll be sharing this PDF that we are reviewing right now.
Hello, Vivek. This is Shravanti here.
Hey, Shravanti.
Yeah, I have a question. So these 12 questions that you have chosen, what would you say would be the difficulty level of these? So if I'm trying to do lead code or something, each question has this easy, medium, hard, right? So what's the difficulty level for each of these questions?
So these questions are actually from they map But if you look at the question, the goal of this is to take you from the basic level in data structures to intermediate level in data structures. So from a lead code standpoint, all of these questions should map to easy, maybe medium in some scenarios, but it's typically easy. But that being said, some of the questions actually have solutions which are more complicated. So depending on your group and what folks are actually looking at and how complicated the answers are, some of the solutions might end up being a little bit more advanced.
Okay. Yeah, and I had one more thing on mind. Personally, where I get stuck with is speed. So if there is when we discuss these answers, when we meet in person or anything, if there is, a general norm that, people generally take this much of time to solve this, that would be very helpful as well.
Yeah. So I am asking every one of the mentees to actually collect or record the time that it takes them to solve. And as mentors, I'm also expecting you to have solved this question. So if you have solved this question and you have timed it, that should give us like a good baseline of what that looks like. In general, most of these questions should be in the 15 to 20-minute mark, and
Okay.
30 minutes tops. If you're actually either slow or if you're getting stuck with something here and there, and if you're taking any more than 30 minutes, then it's already too much.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. And I think Ben had a suggestion that he's saying, given that we only have limited time, we should definitely go over the most efficient solution. Absolutely. And it's not just the most efficient solution, but it's like the appropriate solution for the current skill level. So even if I don't think any of the questions has like a dynamic programming solution, which might be even more effective. But if that is the case, then that's not appropriate for those groups. So you might want to take a step back and just deal with the appropriate solution for this group. So most of the questions are pretty straightforward, array-based questions, and filling up things and formatting them and things like that. This should be a pretty simple workout. So you should not have a whole lot of complications on that. So yeah, I think let's assume that we'll end up going with the most efficient solution. We also have a leads Slack channel as well. So feel free to, if you have any concerns or questions, feel free to discuss. And then in terms of like, hey, somebody in my group came up with this kind of a solution, I don't know what to do. I'd love to. I can definitely provide some feedback, and then there are other leads who can also weigh in and give more context.
Hey Vivek, can we like also create one additional channel called like SG group, so that like everyone can participate there about this study group? Because right now like we have two channels, two different kind of channels. One is like for each study group, and like one is for the leads.
Yeah, that is the intention, Gaurav. I'm actually looking at adding too many people. I'm okay. Let me take a step back. I am not looking forward to having the different group members interact with each other.
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
Yeah, because I think with that will just be more confusion. The only reason why I have leads as a group is because I'm looking at the leads helping each other, and
okay.
And making sure that the leads can actually provide feedback or ask for suggestions, or saying, hey, in my group somebody actually did this and that was causing me a lot of trouble. I'm just making sure, like, I'm just letting others know. So this is just a way for us as leads to help each other. So not looking forward to having because if you add the entire 40 people in a different Slack group, that just becomes too much of a chaos. So focus on if anybody as participants, if you want to provide feedback, or if you want to ask for questions and things like that, use your study groups, respective ones. So it's like a small group of 8 people, just to use that. And as leads, if you want to ask questions and get information, use the leads group, which is essentially 16 people.
Okay, this is good information. Thank you.
Thanks, Gaurav. Any more questions? I will be sharing that in each of the groups, the channels, and in the leads channel as well. So give me a little minute. Give me a few minutes. Thank you, Ben. That was another question that was actually brought up in terms of how do I prepare if I'm a student and I'm actually not comfortable with with these topics that are being discussed. What are the books and what are the things that we want to recommend? Unfortunately, I don't have any specific recommendations of website or books at this point of time. If I think what I would encourage is, as mentees, if you want to actually, if you're struggling with any of these questions and you'd want to have ask for suggestions, feel free to ask your group and see what your group is doing. And group leads provide hints. I can collate them and then use that for the next one. So great question, Sanat. Can I actually submit the code as a text file instead of using a photo? Sort of makes sense, but the challenge I have is that I'd actually like to see what you're practicing. So if you're using a whiteboard to practice, then just take a picture. I strongly recommend a notepad. So if you're using a notebook for doing that, then also again taking a picture makes sense. The advantage of actually that versus a text file is that the text file becomes it's a more refined format, and you don't get to see the mistakes that you make and sort of like the elements of thought process that goes into it. I mean, as is, we are losing some information in terms of I can't see the code evolve because I'm not watching you write the code. The whiteboard gives us like a picture of the whiteboard or a picture of the notepad gives us a lot more benefit from that standpoint. So I would just recommend the picture, and unless you have any specific reservations against that. I mean, it should just be a quick screen picture. Take a picture on your phone, just upload it to your Google Drive, and then just go back on a computer, edit the file name so that you're all good to go. Should be very straightforward. We tried this workflow for something else, and that worked very well. Last but not the least, this is we are trying this for the first time. It's a reasonably larger group. I originally assumed that this will be. I originally assumed that this will be like 3 groups or 4 groups at most, and well, I got a little greedy. We had enough people signing up, so I said let's do 8 groups. So it's a lot of chaos. I'm heavily leaning on all of you to be super self-organized. If you have any challenges, please ping me at any point of time, and then come to me with problems and solutions. And then whatever is plaguing your group is most likely plaguing other groups as well. So just try to be as self-organized as you can. Work with the leads, work with the other leads as well in various channels, and see how this goes. Super thankful for all of you as leads for stepping up, because I know this is a significant commitment, and thank you so much. And even as people who are signing up to be mentees, this is again a bunch of commitment from all of you. Thank you for doing that, and definitely looking forward to gathering a boatload of feedback and refining it and tweaking it so that this can become much more effective. All right. Any questions? Any more questions? All right. So what we will do is okay, good question. What is the timing of the next meetup? So I'd have to restate that we do have meetings in the Seattle area for folks who are actually participating. The SD Skills meetups happen every Saturday, sometimes on Sundays. That is independent of the study group. So just because you are in the study group or not should not affect your participation in the SD Skills meetups. And as far as this group is concerned, the next time all of us will meet is probably on August 3rd or August 4th, when we will be doing a review of what we saw and things like that. At this point of time, besides this, most of us will essentially work with our specific groups. So I'm expecting you to be interacting with your respective group, and if you're a lead, if you have any questions, please post in SG Leads as well, and I can provide context or give some help. But not expecting for us to be meeting as a group, like as a big group, pretty much ever, till like during the study group, and only meet at the end of it to get feedback from people. All right. Awesome. So any more questions? I'm just going to wait for 30 more seconds, and then we can call it a day. Thank you everyone for actually taking time. I am recording this, so I'm going to put it online and share the link to the group as well, with the group as well. Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Vivek.
All I had.